Someone asked on Reddit, what is the worst thing you've witnessed in Hollywood? Which story do you think is the worst Hollywood story? Express your opinion in the comments. Store 1.
I was living in Los Angeles in the 90s, working on the fringes of the industry. The company I worked for printed a lot of movie posters, so I met a ton of people while doing proofs and other work at different places and offices. But it was when I had a part-time job at Banana Republic that I really encountered a lot of actors and writers who were struggling. There were many TV shows being produced by BR, and people's party lives were all interconnected. It's hard to believe how many times I went to house parties where there were substances spread out on a coffee table. And it usually came from one of those kids being given a gift from someone in the industry. One time, I helped Alan Rickman find some pants, and he was incredibly nice. I called him over, packed up his stuff, and handed him the bag, saying, "Here are your pants, Mr. Rickman." He chuckled, took the bag, turned to the other people waiting behind him, and shouted, "Yes, these are Alan Rickman's pants." I still find that so funny to this day.
Store 2.
I lived in Los Angeles for about 15 years and worked in the industry. Here are some things not protected by an NDA. There was a time I watched Lindsay Lohan doing lines behind a club bathroom. It was during the peak of the fire crotch incident. Ty Pennington, who was in a long-term relationship but not married, was talking to local production assistants during Extreme Home Makeover, promising to bring them together in LA. One of them ended up getting pregnant and was forced to have an abortion by him. Then there was my married producer texting me at 3 a.m. trying to sleep with me. That definitely didn't happen. When I told everyone about it, he got mad and tried to play it off like it was a joke, telling me to relax. There was another creepy EP who spread rumors that he slept with me. And when I asked him to clarify, he just chuckled and patted my head, saying something like, "They won't believe you anyway." During a reality shoot, I saw a stranger from the cast inappropriately touching a crew member on camera, and the producer wouldn't let me stop the shoot or intervene, just so he could decide later if he wanted to keep it off camera and continue. There was an older cinematographer who was clearly sleeping with an 18-year-old girl who was really naive. She came to me and asked if I could take her to get Plan B, saying she had never been to a doctor before, and her family wouldn't allow her to find an OBGYN. EP and the production manager were aware of this and supported it. Those are the things that stand out in my mind. None of these involve any real content I worked on, just real-life stuff. The best moment I ever had wasn't on a set. I was sitting at a bus stop on Santa Monica Boulevard when an old Mercedes pulled up at a red light, playing classical music with the windows down. I looked up and saw a head of dark, curly, long hair, and realized it was Slash. It was really an amazing moment.
Story 3.
A few months ago, a coworker of mine was making a delivery to a house under construction. While he was doing his job, Ty Pennington came out the door and arrogantly introduced himself, saying, "Hi, I'm Ty Pennington." My coworker just said hi and started walking toward his truck. I said, "I'm Ty Pennington." He heard a voice say from behind him, "Great, have fun." He got into his truck and drove off. I don't know what kind of reaction he was expecting, but he picked the wrong person to brag about his fame to.
Story 4.
I worked as a PA on an apocalyptic-type show that moved to Texas in the early 2010s. This was my third production as a PA, but my first role was as a general office production assistant. I was excited because it had an amazing cast, and I was a fan of some of them. One of the actresses was probably from one of the biggest cult TV shows of the 2000s, and she had been one of my favorite characters on that show. It wasn't necessarily horrible, but the things I heard from my colleagues in the wardrobe department about this actress were even more surprising. She frequently got her period while wearing the clothes she used for filming, over and over again. And by the end of the shooting day, she acted like nothing had happened. Rumor has it that she really didn't do anything about it or try to prevent it from happening. Because of the nature of the show, these outfits often went through weathering and dyeing processes. I know that this whole situation with the actress turned from a little open secret that the crew could chuckle about into something much more disturbing, especially when the clothing had to be rewashed, repurchased, reweathered, and redyed due to continuity issues. You can imagine that this led to a ton of unnecessary or repetitive work, especially for the crew members involved, mostly in the costume department. I never thought there was a medical issue or anything like that. It just felt weirder because of how indifferent and shameless it all seemed, as if dealing with the situation was totally normal. It definitely shifted my perception of her toward a more neutral fan perspective.
Story 5.
After working as a studio-level department head for 35 years, I've seen a lot of crazy things involving substance and all kinds of shenanigans, but one of them is rated family-friendly. An Oscar-winning actress emerges from her trailer and begins stuffing 3 rolls of toilet paper from under the sink into a massive Hermes backpack, probably worth over $6,000. The real problem? Of course, a production would put him in the top penthouse suite of a luxury hotel in Vancouver. She could call the front desk and have 2 packages of premium toilet paper delivered to her room within the next half hour, and the doorman wouldn't bat an eyelid. But no, he decided to buy cheap, single-ply, airport-quality toilet paper from Winnebago instead. So he'd be in big trouble if the maintenance man didn't realize he was low on toilet paper.
Story 6.
It's been about 7 years since I worked in the biz, but I still talk about my experiences with my friends. I've worked as a PA, camera operator, runner, security guard, gaffer, location manager, and a bunch of other jobs. I've worked on 6 high-budget films, 10 TV shows, commercials, and promotional videos. I left because of the answers to the questions that were asked here. A lot of people in the film industry are super cool and easy to work with, but many are completely useless. I witnessed a director berating a poor intern while working on a Chicago show at MTV Beach House. He was screaming at her for no reason at all. She was just crying the whole time. While working on a TV show, I think it was called The Unit, 2 new girls were brought onto the crew. I didn't know what their jobs were, but I saw them around a few locations and talked to both of them occasionally. This went on for about 3 weeks. Then, one night, a few people were invited to a party. I saw those girls mingling at the party. Substance use and alcohol were definitely factors for them. I left shortly after everything got going, but a few days later, I was told someone had come to collect their stuff. Apparently, the party had gotten out of control, and those 2 girls had been coerced into engaging in group sex. I never saw them again. I felt so bad for them, because when you go to those parties trying to make friends, since that's how you network for more work, people completely disregard them and take advantage of them. I have many stories about crew members, both famous and not so famous, who have faced unnecessary mistreatment due to substance use and sleeping with people they shouldn't have. It can really be a terrible world, but despite all that, I've also had a lot of good experiences with famous people. Some may do the wrong things in life, but they're actually good people.
Story 7.
I work as a post coordinator at a television network. We have a producer who really doesn't do much. He just got the title and passes the work on to everyone else. He only shows up when the auditions feature models or attractive women, and he's really hard on them. I see this a lot because the casting office isn't too far from the post department, and it really frustrates us since we need his signature for so many things, and sometimes it's impossible to reach him. Anyway, there was one audition day when I remembered a few of the women he had talked to. That night, I needed to take some paperwork over to the producer's house to get him to sign off on it. He has a place in a secluded part of Hollywood Hills. I went up, knocked on the door, and he opens it with 4 women from the casting session behind him. They were all in their lingerie. There were substances on the table, and the producer was totally out of it. He invites me in, and I decline, but it eventually turns into a situation where he says he won't sign anything unless I come in. I sit far away from everyone, staying really quiet while they keep drinking and rejecting all their offers. Eventually, he went into another room with 2 of the girls, and you can guess what was happening in there. When he came back, he said he would sign. I awkwardly waited for about 30 minutes until the girls left, clearly upset and angry. When I went inside, I found him passed out on his bed, throwing up. I told the other 2 girls, and they left as well. I positioned him so he wouldn't choke on his vomit, and then left. I forged his signature. The next day, he came to apologize and asked if I told the EPs or the showrunners. I said no, and I realized there was a ton of overtime I had to work for the next week's shoot that I didn't sign up for. Since then, we haven't talked about it.
Story 8.
I was a low-level intern at a major production company in film school. We were having a presentation day where writers and other producer hopefuls came to pitch their ideas. We were sitting at a long table while potential filmmakers presented their ideas, hoping to secure funding. Before the executive producer, EP, started, they said, If you hear the word pass in any context, that's your cue to stop taking notes and to ask 0 follow-up questions so we can get rid of the useless ones right away. As people came in and started presenting a few minutes into their stories, they would say things like, "Can I get a pen?" Or, "Is pastrami good for lunch for everyone?" He was having fun finding ways to cut off the presenters with the secret code word. The worst part was when a guy from Minnesota came in with a concept for a children's film that a lot of people in his hometown were raving about. He got a little attention, and the right people agreed to set up the presentation meeting for him. The guy was writing for the town newspaper, saying that the local kid was going to Hollywood. And after that, they named something in the small town after him. The townspeople came together to raise money for his big trip to Hollywood, complete with some hero worship vibe. Anyway, he walked in, set up a podium, and the EP immediately said, "Are you from Pasadena?" "Alrighty then," pens went down. All he said was his name and that he was happy to be there, and he was passed. I felt sorry for everyone that day, but especially for him. He kept trying to share his whole story and the personal saga of his hometown hero, while all the EP did was draw geometric shapes in his notebook.
If you have a story you would like to share, please share it with us in the comments. Also, subscribe to my channel for more Reddit stories like this. And don't forget to turn on notifications. Take care, friends.